Hi, my name is Patricia Potts, and I'm really excited today to introduce you to a friend of mine, Kerri Ernsten, and she works at NAMI, the National Alliance for Mentally Ill. She has had a real experience herself in that field. I know somebody once said to me, you've got to hear Patricia come and speak. She's so experienced in depression. So maybe you can relate to that.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over a lot to Kerri to just tell us a little bit about your experiences. How did you end up in depression? What brought it on? And go from there.
Okay. Well, it's a long story, but I will try to touch on the important things. When you say depression and what brought it on, that's about a 15-year history. I started to be really depressed when I was about 18 and just graduating from high school. And everything that I was involved in was coming to an end, dancing and cheerleading and different things, and I became very depressed. And then it wasn't until after the summer after I went to Dixie College and was still a little bit depressed. Upon graduating from Dixie, I became more depressed. It was more like this feeling of just extreme pain and guilt, and it's really hard to explain that, really the full extent of that.
What do you think your guilt was triggered by?
Well, I'll tell you, at that time I did not know. All I knew was that I was just in a lot of pain and felt that God was very disappointed with me for some reason I didn't know. But as time went on, and I did, with my first marriage, ended up in the hospital, and that's when I found out what the real source of it was. Of course, it was chemical and needed therapy and things like this, but I discovered that the impact that the environment had on me.
You mean your environment
as
from
a
school?
child?
Oh, okay.
As a child. The environment, as a child, and I came to find out really how incredible the mind is, and how easily it's programmed, especially when we're talking about childhood types of things.
So at this point, you were probably around 21?
21, well, actually 22.
Okay.
When I went to the hospital finally.
Okay.
That was my first hospitalization out of about 13.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long road. But
did you have any children at that time?
No.
Okay.
No, which I'm really grateful for, because I wouldn't want to put them through any pain, like I've seen and things like this. But I will tell you, that first hospitalization, my husband and I just sat down and talked to the doctor, and he was wonderful. He just sat and listened for about an hour. Wow. While we cried and talked and cried, and then his words to me were, "Kerri, do you think you could have been abused as a child?" And my instant reaction was, "No, I had a happy childhood."
Wow.
And upon my husband and the doctor leaving the room, and the doctor said, "Just consider it." He wasn't putting it in my mind like a lot of people. That's kind of something people are concerned about, but he did not do that at all. It was just a suggestion.
Okay.
And my husband had left, and I decided to get acquainted with the hospital and people in there. And so I went across the hallway to this girl, and she said hello and invited me in. Was telling her a little bit about my experience, and she says, And then she had this big book in her room. It was called The Courage to Heal. And it was for women survivors of sexual abuse as children. And I opened the first page, and it said, "Do you have problems with drinking? Do you ever feel like you're going crazy? Do you feel ashamed of your body?" And different things like this, and it just hit right on. I was going, wow, that's it, that's me, And then that night I went to bed, and I think it was a combination of, first of all, feeling very safe, and that this was an environment that I could explore. I woke up about 4 in the morning, And I could just remember this flash, this picture
Right.
of the silhouette of this man in a hallway. And just the terror that came over me, I woke up and just hysterical. And the nurse that came down to our room and she put her arms around me. She said, "Kerri, this happened, and you need to talk about it. This happened to you." And so anyways, and the next morning my doctor came over to me and he said, "Kerri," he said, "healing from this is like starting open heart surgery." And I said, "That's exactly what it feels like. It does." I was working at the time. I had to take 3 months off of work just to allow the healing process. And I took that, I went and got that Courage to Heal book, and I kid you not, that was my Bible for the longest time.
Who was the author of that book, in case our
Sure,
ladies-
yes. Ellen Bass and Laura Davis
Okay.
are the authors of the book. And they've had a couple of updated versions since then.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful book because it allows, when children are abused, they are scared into silency and secrecy. I'll kill you if you tell anybody.
Yeah.
And so the significance of me being in the hospital was you're away from your abuser now, you're in a place where you can really heal.
So did you know who your
So-
abuser was?
I didn't know for sure because I didn't, like I said, I just saw the silhouette of a man, not actual faces. But the most, the most important thing was not actually who did it, but that it happened.
Yeah.
And it's time to start healing from this.
Right.
And then we deal with who did it, later on.
Wow.
So, and then as I educated myself, went to therapy and was educated on mental illness and childhood abuse and things like these, I realized just how fragile we are and things that happen to us really affect us.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people, "Oh, it happened a long time ago, just forget it, forget it, don't talk about it anymore," that's the damaging thing that everybody says. Because I think a lot of society, we don't want to accept the fact that things like this happen.
Right.
And so it's easier to deny it, which is a backlash for people who are going through the healing process. Because it is so important to acknowledge that it happened.
And that's what's hard, is when it's from a dream. For me, that's the same thing, Kerri. It was a dream that I had that, from when I put that in my book. And it was hard because I couldn't, it was just like, how should I be able to believe this, let alone anybody else that was a professional that I had to go to. And she walked me through the stages that I was experiencing, and then I was able to realize it really did happen. But it was hard when it comes from a dream. And did you go through that? Oh, this really didn't happen? Could this not have happened?
Well, I'll tell you, as soon as I had found out, and it was such a relief because, number one, I wasn't numb anymore. And I had to feel and nurture that inner child and listen to her and listen to the fear, the terror, the sadness. And once I did that, I was no longer suicidal.
Wow.
I was able to get off half my medications.
Wow.
Once I discovered the concept of the child within, it totally changed my life.
That's great.
It did.
That's great.
And there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have, actually committed suicide.
Because they
over
didn't get to
things
that
like
step.
this. Exactly. And the whole point is to get that word out to people so that they can understand that there is hope and that they can start to heal. And they don't have to live in silence or secrecy anymore.
That's great. At this point, I'm thinking that I think we've covered this subject really well, and I think I think it takes a lot of courage for you to come out with that. And we really appreciate that. Because of the fact that the videos only have to be under 10 minutes, we're going to go ahead and go to part 2. So again, this is Kerri and Patricia. Thanking you for joining us, and we hope that you'll join us for part 2. Thanks.